In this episode of Meet the Zor, we're talking with Chiddy's. Coming up next on Meet the Zor. All right, Mike, I start with arguably the easiest, but maybe the hardest question. And this is going to help frame our entire discussion, but everybody falls into franchising. And I would imagine when you create the business, it's not like you're like franchise on day one. How did you fall into franchising? What is your franchise story?
Sure. So I would have to say probably a three-pronged answer to that. The first would be, it was really about listening to our customers. When we would go around and whether it be the food truck or after our first corporate store opening, we really got a lot of great feedback saying, well, why don't you open a Chiddy's out east? Why don't you open a Chiddy's on the South Shore? Why don't you, and so really the customers' feedback kind of fed our overall feeling and support of the brand. And it kind of leads into the second reason, which was we really felt we had a strong and recognizable brand. We had been out there with the food truck for a while and covering a lot of territory, and really started to get some really strong feedback on the brand itself, Chiddy's Cheesesteaks. I always tell the story, you leave a festival, and as we were driving down the street leaving the festival, they'd start out a chant, Chiddy's, Chiddy's, Chiddy's. So we really felt that, like I said, there was brand visibility, brand recognition, and that was what I would say was the second reason. And the third reason was really that we feel we have a unique offering, both in the structure of our brick and mortars, as well as our menu and our food offering. And with the brick and mortar, we really wanted to stay with our theme, which was a food truck. So we kind of brought the cool vibe of a food truck indoors, inside. A lot of our customers said that, it'd be nice to be able to take your sandwich and, eat it with a roof over our heads, whether it's the elements or having to, basically eat it in their car or whatever. So, we brought that cool vibe indoors and felt it was a little bit unique. And then finally, we really felt that this was something scalable. It was a repeatable business model that was scalable. And, it's our hope, it's still our hope that we kind of create our own category in terms of, what people choose to eat. Do we want to get pizza for the night? Do we want to get Chinese food? Do we want to get Tex-Mex? Do we want to get sushi? Do we want to get Chiddy's? So we feel that our offering, we like to call it good mood food for the whole family, is something that really could effectively be in every town or every other town, or like I say, something that's scalable and easy to really start. I'll say plopping them in the various towns.
When did you officially become a franchise?
So we became a franchise just after COVID. So 2021, I believe, is when we connected with SMB Franchising, who walked us through that process. So we're into franchising now for about 2 years.
And how many franchisees have signed up so far?
We have 2 franchisees and 3 locations under those franchisees at this point. We have a total of eight locations.
You go back to, you make the decision, your fans have said, look, this brand, get it in other cities. You engineer the unit to be able to put a roof over people's heads, and the product is already raved about. And now you go into franchising. Has it met your expectations? Has it not met your expectations to this point? Or are you still like on a weird roller coaster that you're figuring it out?
I'm going to say a weird roller coaster. And I'm going to say that we're not where we want to be from a franchising perspective yet, but we're also, I'm going to say that we're trying to franchise the right way. And what I mean by that is we're not interested in losing sight of quality and really, the atmosphere and the vibe that we bring to our customers. So we're doing it, I'm going to say methodically. And as you and I spoke earlier, Nick, with the whole aspect of being having the opportunity to get into Citi Field this year under a partnership with Coca-Cola and the Mets, that was a dream come true. And I don't want to say it gave us a pause in franchising, because I think it's giving us great leverage and great, I'll say, validation behind the franchise model. But we put a lot of effort into that, and felt that was really, expanding the brand in the way that we wanted to expand the brand. Although we have not, I'll say, we have not inked the deals on as many franchises as we would have liked at this point. But fair trade-off to be in Citi Field for the year versus, efforting, another handful of franchises.
Did you grow up a Mets fan?
I did, as well as did my two partners. So this has really been, it was one of those things where, between the three of us, okay, who's going to tonight's game? Oh, I will. So it's been fun. And like I said, it's really, a connection between the three brands of having Coca-Cola invite us there as part of their community outreach program, and their overall sponsorship program there at Citi Field. And then, collaborating with the Mets, and Chiddy's. We say Chiddy's at Citi. What a great match. It was really a fantastic year for us, and got us a lot more recognition. We really feel that the brand is in a perfect spot right now to expand further in franchising. So, so the franchising model is something, we knew that we could only extend ourselves so far. There's three of us, and whether or not, you bring in family members and so on, that there's only so much that the three of us could really, expand on. But based on what our customers were saying, we need you here, we need you there. We felt that there was a way to bring our Chiddy's brand and the excitement behind the Chiddy's brand to many more neighborhoods through franchising. And, that's, 100% still our goal. And, now it's really about getting this story in front of folks that, may be looking to start a franchise and might be interested in franchising.
I mean, look, if obviously what I hear is the dream evolves when we decided to become a franchise. Like, it goes from, you're running an awesome business to now you can expand this thing. And in the middle of this dream, you start awarding a few franchises, but you also hit and tug on probably a childhood dream that you may not be able to play for the Mets, but at least you're in the same stadium as those who get to play for the Mets. And so now you're in the place where, like, if you were to zoom out and go back to being a kid, like, you've accomplished something in business that very few people would, that happen to be with their favorite team. And so now, like, all of these experiences, it put it on a roller coaster, but you're feeling very confident about where this can go. And then some of these moments, these ups and downs, probably also teaches you how to be realistic about what your growth goals are, and how to perfect the business to even be stronger for operators.
Yeah, I would say you hit it on the head there in terms of building our confidence, building when the Mets validate your offering and your brand. And we had a short program with them. Was actually supposed to be a 2-month program with Coca-Cola and the Mets. And Chiddy's did so well at Citi Field that the Mets came and asked us to stay for the remainder of the season, which obviously was that childhood dream come true. And a very surreal moment when we served that first Chiddy's cheesesteak out of the Coca-Cola food truck in Coca-Cola Corner. You really have to pinch yourself and say, is this really happening? From, kind of an idea and a whim and see where this all goes. And, starting with a food truck and all of that to serving our cheesesteaks, at Citi Field was quite the roller coaster of emotions. And we could not have been happier. And then when, as I was mentioned to you earlier, when the Mets invited us back for next season, it just once again just gave us, I'll say, more wind behind our sails in terms of where ultimately this can go.
Well, you know what I appreciate about you sharing that? It's that I think about, and it could be myself and it can be majority of people in business. It's very hard to use that term pinch myself moment, because there a lot of business leaders talk about this. Like it's the gap between where you're at and what happiness, your perception of happiness is. And as you grow in business, that gap never closes. Like it feels like you're just constantly chasing this moment of happiness. And for a franchise brand, oftentimes that could be, I had a dream of selling our first franchise, and then, well, now I want 10. Well, actually, now I want 100. Well, now I want 1,000. And so that gap never changes because we're constantly chasing things in life. And for you to be able to say, wow, this summer, I'm pinching myself that first cheesesteak that goes out, you were able to have gratitude for the moment that a lot of people in business struggle to have that moment because the dreams continue to be bigger. You're like, I'm not saying the dreams are gone. I'm just saying I'm putting it on pause for a minute to really appreciate this moment in time that's happening with our business.
Yeah. And I think that 100% that's the way we feel. People frequently ask me, have you taken the opportunity to see how far that you've grown this business, and you and your partners have taken this thing from, a single, brick and mortar storefront. Well, originally from the food truck, and then my partners and I joined forces behind the brick and mortar. And then obviously that's where led to the franchise. Have you taken the opportunity to see how far that you've come? And I said, as much as we're happy with and really ecstatic with what we see where the brand has gone and where it's going, we really won't be satisfied until we feel that gap has been filled. To your point exactly, we don't know what that gap is. When we get to 10, are we going to be ecstatic that we're at 10? 100% we will. But everyone tells us once you get to 10, 20 is an easy next step, and then wherever it goes from there. So we're trying to build this thing with a local flavor, with a local feel, and a very high brand quality. And at the same time, we will not, I'll say, hold ourselves back from letting this thing scale, letting Chiddy's grow to the extent wherever it may take us. And that's really, like I said, the exciting part. That's the piece that, when I wake up in the middle of the night, that's kind of where I'm thinking is exactly where can we go with this? That's what gets you your motivation and your intrinsic, initiative.
Most of the time, if I'm advising a business, I would say your website is where you were. Get your website to where you're going. And in business, most franchisors, I would say you're really selling $1 million dream. And so, like, as simple as how much investment Kia puts into driving a Kia on commercials and their business, like, they're selling something that costs $20,000. You're selling $1 million dream. And so I say that, but in this scenario, I would go against that advice and say, leave everything as is. Like, I think part of the magic of what you're doing is it looks local, it feels local. I wouldn't change the brand. I would say just continue to build on this. You don't need the bells and whistles. Then culturally, you'll drive the right people in. So again, like, typically my advice would be vastly different, but even on the franchise site, like your franchise site, if you said, Nick, is this a best practice site? I'd be like, absolutely not. But in your scenario, I actually think it fits with where you're going to go with this business. Do you feel the same way?
Well, it's I'm going to say comforting to hear you say that because it's one of the areas that we know what we know about our business. We're obviously fairly new to the franchising world. So we know that there's a lot to learn around the franchising world and where we're going. And we understand that it's going to change the way I operate on a day-to-day basis, the way my partners operate on a day-to-day basis. But for right now, like you said, we are trying to stay true to who we are and grow at a rate that makes sense with that. So I 100% agree with you that I feel that our franchise page on our website is something that needs some work and needs to be updated and so on. But it's very comforting to hear you say that where we've put our efforts thus far is consistent with, I'll say, what you perceive our business model to be.
That's where, again, I would leave it alone. And you know, if I think through the space, like I grew up in Chicago, whether it's Al's Beef or it's Bona Beef. Bona Beef has started franchising, or it's Portillo's. Like Portillo's is probably the champion in the space. But if I go all the way down to like Gene and Jude's hot dog stand in Chicago, it is slammed all the time. But part of it is because they don't give two shits about the brand. Like the branding isn't it. It is all into the product and the customer experience and the operations. If you think to early stage McDonald's, it was all about burgers, fries, and shakes and operating that in consistency. So when I'm looking at the pictures and I'm hearing your story, it's like, don't change anything. Like keep the course. And then what's going to happen is like when you get buyers that start saying, okay, what's in this category? There's some digital tools to make that happen. But now you're so focused on the operations, because I heard it in the opening. You're focused on the brand, but not branding the brand and the experience that happened in city. And then you're focused on just the legitimacy or the authentic approach that you're taking to the category. That's where like almost giving the middle finger to franchising is how you're going to be able to hold on to like that chance when you're driving out of there. You want that same culture as you keep growing. That's where in your scenario, it's a very rare case, but I think the brand is this, you know, and I think that's going to allow you to hit the dreams that you dream of.
Yeah, no, it's, I'll keep saying we don't know what we don't know. And we're humble enough to acknowledge that and admit that. And we're motivated by the responses and by the feedback and by the, you know, the validation that we're getting around our product offering, around even the name itself. You know, Chiddy is my lifelong nickname. I have two sons, they're Chiddy and little Chiddy. So it was one of these things I couldn't get away from. So I said, maybe there's some brand value to this whole thing, you know? So there's 100% a slice of humble pie that goes along with this. And, you know, we are really just, we're just really kind of following the wave that we're on in terms of the popularity of the brand and what our customers are telling us along the way. We're soon to open our next brick and mortar in Astoria, Queens. We opened up a ghost kitchen in a ghost kitchen, just more or less as a delivery outlet in Sunnyside, and it absolutely took off. And you know, having Citi Field right next to it to kind of support that wasn't such a bad thing. But you know, even just through, you know, delivery and takeout in Queens, there really seems to be a groundswell of popularity growing in the brand.
I love it. All right, Mike, let's close on this. People have watched this, they've seen this, they're thinking about it. Anything else you want the ghost candidate to know about the business that we haven't talked about?
I'm sorry,
someone that we don't know their name, but they've watched this video or they visited your website. Anything else you want them to know about the business opportunity?
We believe that this business model, like I said, it's a unique offering. It's not, you know, everybody's sandwich shop. We're not trying to compete with anybody's sandwich shop. We feel like we have not only a unique product offering and a very popular cheesesteak, but an overall unique dining experience. It's kind of one write up. One of the reporters that did a write up on us said it's kind of like a cult following around Chiddy's Cheesesteaks, and that when you see one open up in your neighborhood, just know that it's going to be popular from the day that it opens. So that would really be how I guess I would close out, is to say that for somebody looking at this opportunity, I would almost guarantee that that grand opening, that day that you opened the doors for a Chiddy's Cheesesteaks in the town near you, we're going to be immediately a fan favorite. And it is one of the things we pride ourselves is giving back to the community and being a staple in the communities that we operate in. But that's what I would say, is that you're going to be jumping right out of the gates when you open.
All right, my final statements are this. One, you can't fake being authentic. I think you come off super authentic and humble, and I appreciate that. I think I've always said this, that brands don't sell brands, people do. And ultimately, if I'm a buyer, I'm going to buy from you. Second, you should not call them franchisees. They're called Chidsies from now on. Like you can brand that. There's a brand in there. And then your PR story is you should say, we are absolutely uninterested in franchising in Philadelphia, and we're blanking out that market, and we'll never sell a franchise there. Now you're on par. Now you're a fan.
All good advice. All good advice.
Mike, great talking to you. I look forward to seeing where the story goes. I'll be a fan of the brand, and I want to have you back as you continue to trek through this roller coaster. But I appreciate you. Thanks for sharing your story. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.